So let me flip it over to our good friend, Tyler Ramsbey. Let me bring him in here. Hey, Tyler, how are you?
What's up, everyone? Doing well. Good to be here.
Awesome. Well, all right, I'm going to throw it to you. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for helping us kick off the conference. And I'll let you get into mental health and pen testing. And if you have slides you want to share, just go ahead and use the share button there, and I will bring them on stage and you'll be ready to rock.
Cool. We should be good. I'm using OBS. I can do everything just like from this main
Oh, look
screen.
at this
So
guy. Boss
I got it.
moves. Boss
I got
moves.
it.
All right, Tyler. I'll let you go, man. Enjoy.
Cool. Thank you, Jerry. What's up, everyone? My name is Tyler Ramsbey. It is really wild to be here, especially following the one and only John Strand. I feel like I somehow social engineered my way into the spot. I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse that I'm following John, but one fun note as we just share a little bit about who I am. My name is Tyler, and this Simply CyberCon is being kicked off by South Dakota. So the crazy thing is that John is on the west side of South Dakota. I am on the east side of South Dakota. He's on like the cool spot with Mount Rushmore and everything. The only thing on East River, South Dakota, where I live is prairie and cows. So I live in a very small town of about 1,000 people. So it really is wild that I have the opportunity to sit and talk with you guys today. And what I want to talk about, I would argue, is a subject that is far more important than certifications, degrees, career, salary. Because at the end of the day, if you don't get this piece right, you can be as successful as you want to be, and it's all going to fall apart. What I get to talk to you today about is mental and emotional health when it comes to pen testing, when it comes to cybersecurity. And here's what I want to do. I know, like, if you're like me, when I'm watching an online conference, what I end up doing is I take the screen and I put it on my side screen. And while I'm working, I'm like half paying attention. So, look, if after John, you took me and moved me to your side screen, I just want to grab your attention really quick. Give me just 20 minutes of your time, because I think what we're going to talk about is far too important for me to just be thrown on your side screen as we dive into this. And what I want you to answer is this question: how are you doing? Like, I know we all have that pleasantries that we say, like, you see someone, hey, how you doing, dude? And you're like, I'm doing good. How are you? I'm doing good. I want to get beyond the pleasantries and ask you honestly, how are you really doing? How are you really doing emotionally? How are you really doing mentally? How's your family doing? How's your physical health going? Those are the kind of things that I want to talk with you about. Now, to do that, we'll dive into the slides. I created my entire PowerPoint in Kali Linux because I'm a wannabe hacker, and I figured, hey, if I make it all in Cali, I look cool. You guys will think I'm cool. So my entire presentation is going to be in Kali Linux. But let's begin with the who am I? Who is this dude talking to you? What qualifies me to talk about this subject? How did I social engineer my way to the Simply CyberCon and talk after John Strand? First, I just want to say a huge thank you to Jerry, the team at Simply Cyber, and a huge thank you to my friend Justin Gold. When Simply CyberCon was announced, Justin reached out to me. I was like, hey, you should propose a talk. You should submit a talk. I think you have some good things to say. And I thought, I don't think I can. Like, I'm not at that level, but I thought, hey, the worst they can tell me is no. So I submitted a talk, and I somehow ended up here. So thank you to Jerry, Simply Cyber, to my friend Justin Gold. But a little bit about me. I already shared I live in South Dakota, a really small town, more cows than people where I live. I have a wife. I have 2 young kids. My daughter is about to turn 7. My son is 4. And I share that because as we talk about burnout and mental health, anyone else with young kids and trying to balance being a parent, being a spouse, going to school, earning certifications, being a pen test, or whatever it is, you know the difficulty it can be when you're trying to balance family life alongside of all these things and content creation and speaking at things like Simply CyberCon. It is a grind. And my journey into cybersecurity has been rather unique. I know many of you also have unique journeys, but I was in pastoral ministry for the first really 10 years of my career. So for 10 years, I was a lead pastor. I did preaching, teaching, counseling, things like that. I started a church, casted a lot of vision in that world, and ended up getting a master's of divinity, which some of you might be like, what the heck is a divinity? That sounds like Harry Potter. It kind of is. I spent 3 years and a bunch of money studying history and theology and philosophy and psychology, and actually did doctorate work and was serving as a teaching assistant, teaching graduate level students in academia. So for the first 10 years of my career, I was doing pastor stuff and I was doing academic stuff, teaching and doing things like research. Well, what ended up happening, we all experienced this little known pandemic called the COVID-19 pandemic. And if you're like me, when I was going through the COVID-19 pandemic, it caused me to really reconsider what I wanted my future to look like, what I wanted my career to look like. And there was a lot of deep division in our country. And when I say our country, I recognize this is international. So I am in the United States. So in the United States, there's really deep division during the COVID-19 pandemic, and deep division even within the church world. At that time, the church that I was leading shrunk to the point where it could not pay me a full-time salary. And so I started my first IT job in 2020, my first full-time IT job as IT support level 1. So get this. I was working full-time in IT. I was working full-time in the church world, and I was going to WGU full-time. I got my degree in cybersecurity in 7 months, and I was trying to break into pen testing. When I got into IT in 2020, so this is really just a few years ago, if you asked me, hey, Tyler, what do you want to do? I would have told you, like, yo, I saw these crazy dudes like John Hammond. I want to be like that. Like, I want to hack stuff. And everyone says that, right? Everyone who gets into IT, what do you want to do? I want to be a hacker. Like, I've seen Hack the Planet, right? Mr. Robot. I want to do the things I saw going on there, but I didn't see any way to get there. I shared before, I live in South Dakota. We're not really known for cybersecurity. The only pen testing firm in like the entire state is BHIS, and that's like 9 hours from where I live. But I wanted to get into pen testing. I wanted to get into cybersecurity. I started my first full-time job as IT support level 1 in 2020, became IT support manager just based on some of my leadership experience, realized I missed the hands-on keyboard work, pivoted to a senior analyst role on the blue team side of it, and now for the past year, I finally have landed my dream role. So it took me about 2 years to get into it, but I have been a pen tester with Rhino Security Labs, and just want to give a huge shout out to Rhino that they took a chance with me. I had other interviews. No one gave me the opportunity because I didn't have the experience, but Rhino took a chance. I do all kinds of pen testing, web apps, APIs, internals, AWS, externals. I'm getting a mobile app. So I do a lot of that really technical work. And I also create content. So if you find me on YouTube or Twitch, my Twitch is hacksmarter.live. I stream throughout the week. But a lot of my content, actually all of my content, is highly technical. I take a machine from Try Hack Me or Hack the Box and just go into it blind, struggle my way through it, yell at my computer and get frustrated, but share my methodology and share my process as I do that. So that is a little bit about who I am. But the reason I want to talk about mental health is if I rewind to when I first got into IT and I was working 2 full-time jobs, going to school, trying to balance having a family and 2 young kids, I really hit a wall in my life, a really serious time of burnout, even a little bit of depression. And I spent a season in professional therapy. And during that season of professional therapy, I learned a lot of ways that I'm broken, a lot of trauma in my own life that I did not deal with. And for the past 3 years, I've been on this journey to get healthy mentally and emotionally and spiritually and physically, all while trying to balance being a pen tester, creating content, speaking to things like Simply CyberCon. So what I want to do is I'm going to take a break from my very technical content I usually create and want to share a lot more from my own personal journey and my journey into get into a healthier place mentally and emotionally. And based on John's talk just before this about really imposter syndrome and trying to break into the industry and like all of these things that we need to do to get there, I really hope that you find this valuable. So I'm going to say once again, if I am on your side screen, take me off your side screen, put me on your main screen, give me 20 minutes of your time, probably less than 20 minutes of your time, so that we can talk about the subject. And I want to start in a very weird place, and that is the ancient city of Carthage. Now, I told you guys before, I have a master's in divinity, which means I spent thousands of dollars and 3 years studying a subject that I no longer use because I hack stuff. So I thought, hey, I'm going to like at least use my degree for 5 minutes during the Simply CyberCon presentation. One of the things I'm fascinated by is history, especially ancient history, as some of you might be similar. And one city in particular I find interesting is the ancient city of Carthage. Curious in the chat if anyone's even heard of Carthage before. Carthage was on the coast of North Africa. It really dominated the Mediterranean world for centuries. It was the place to be. It was an ancient superpower, a lot of money, a lot of wealth, a lot of really strong military power. And they came face to face with another ancient nation you may have heard of called the Roman Empire. Matter of fact, if you Google or Chat GPT, whatever your research you want to do, if you Google or Chat GPT, there's some really famous battles between Rome and Carthage that I personally think are interesting to read about, but I'm probably just nerdy. But here's the thing. If you study Carthage, you come across a really dark and horrific note in their history. Now, at first, historians weren't sure if it was actually true, but if we rewind back to the ancient world, Rome and other nations accused Carthage of ritual child sacrifice. Really dark, really deep. Now, as you can imagine, you often accuse your political opponents of doing crazy things they don't actually do. So historians just assume these are accusations from other nations. Carthage didn't actually practice this. Well, Oxford recently did some more research and they were going through archaeology and digging and uncovering new material. And as they were doing that, they discovered these places called Tofits. Have no idea if I'm saying it right, but you can read it for yourself. Tofits. And these Tofits they discovered were child burial grounds. Now, that in of itself wasn't out of the ordinary. As you can imagine, in the ancient world, there was a very high rate of infant mortality. So they thought initially maybe this is just grieving parents and it was a cemetery as grieving parents laid to rest their children. But they continued to study and they continued to dig and they discovered these essentially tombs in the cemetery with engravings on them. And a lot of these engravings said things along the lines of, because of this sacrifice, the gods have heard my prayers and blessed me. I thought, okay, that is strange, but hey, maybe something's being lost in translation. We're translating different languages here. It's old, it's been dated. So then what the researchers did is they decided, let's date some of these remains and let's date the history of Carthage and figure out what was going on in this ancient city. And here's what they noticed. They noticed during times of economic disaster, a lot more of these deaths, sacrifices, I would call them murders, happened. And as they continued to study, they realized what people were doing is when they were struggling financially or when their nation, the city, was going through a disaster, they would quite literally sacrifice their loved ones in order to increase their economic standing or to curry favor with the so-called gods, to increase their posture in society. Now, you might be thinking, all right, Jerry, like who invited the religious nut job to talk after John Strand? Like, how the heck does this apply to cybersecurity? Here's the thing. I think the story of Carthage in many ways can be a metaphor for the way many of us, myself included, have approached our journeys and our careers in cybersecurity. We have sacrificed the things that really matter on this altar of success. I know, especially for those of you who want to break into this mysterious field of pen testing, we have sacrificed, if you have children, you have sacrificed time with your children, being present to your children to get that next certification. You have sacrificed in many ways your marriage on this altar for career success. You have sacrificed close friends on this altar of career success. And many of us, myself included, have sacrificed our mental and emotional and physical well-being on this altar to the gods of cybersecurity, that we might be successful, that we might land that role, whatever that role is. Now, if we go back to Carthage one more time, the way these sacrifices would have happened, or I would call them murders, really horrific stuff, is they would have burned them. So they were looking at cremated remains as they were studying this. And I think it's interesting that we have coined a term in our culture for when we do the same thing, sacrifice what really matters for our careers and for salary, thinking that will make us happy. And we have called it being burnt out. Now, burnout, really a buzzword in our culture. It's a buzzword in cybersecurity. Even when we have conversations about like in your career and how to move to the next level, it's always like a side note. They'll say, all right, but be careful, don't burn yourself out. But no one actually defines what is burnout. What does it actually mean? So I want us really quickly to define our terms. When I'm talking about burnout, I'm talking about more than just being tired. True burnout is a fatigue that goes really like into your bones. It's into your soul. You take a day off, you're still exhausted. You take a week off, you're still exhausted. You take a month off, you come back and you are still exhausted. And anyone who's been there, you know what I'm talking about. It's that weight, that load, that just overwhelming fatigue on your shoulders at all times that you can't seem to escape from. Now, I thought my experience might be helpful, but really we need an objective reality. So I did some research and I asked the almighty Mayo Clinic, what are some symptoms of burnout? I'm going to show that to you briefly, but before I do that, here's the context. I'm a pen tester. A lot of what I do is a web app pen testing. And if you know pen testing, or you just do try hack me and hack the box machines, one of the first things you check on a login screen is, hey, is this vulnerable to SQL injection? The one and only Tiberius recently came out with a really excellent try hack me machine called Lesson Learned that teaches how to test SQL injection. But for SQL injection, one super simple way to test is on the login screen or on whatever the user input is if you do a single quote and the server responds with a 500 error and you do another one to fix it, that's a symptom of a deeper issue of SQL injection. It is a symptom. The deeper issue is SQL injection. Some of y'all call it SQL injection. You can sound off in the chat which one is right. You're wrong. It is SQL injection. That's how I say it. But that's a sign of SQL injection. In the same way, I want to do a little bit of a pen test on your mental and emotional health and ask you if any of these symptoms are in your life. So these are burnout symptoms according to the Mayo Clinic. The first one is being cynical and critical. Now, we all know that person either at our job or in our personal life that no matter what happens to them, no matter what you say, no matter how you try to encourage them, it's just constant negativity. If you don't know that person, hey, you might be that person, right? But when you are burnt out, there really is no bright side to life. The cup is always half empty. You always are cynical and critical about your life, about work, about careers. The second aspect is you drag yourself to work. You hate your job, but you recognize like, bills have to get paid. I got to pay for my internet somehow, right? You have to pay all these things. So you still show up, but you hate it. You live for the weekend. You literally drag yourself to work each day. For those who work from home like me, you drag yourself into your home office and you're dead, right? You have no motivation. You don't want to be there, but you're there because you have to be. The third is you're irritable and impatience is evident in your life, but especially with your family. This is something I noticed in my own journey when I was dealing with some pretty severe burnout and I was in that season of professional therapy. Anyone like in the church world or outside who talked to me be like, yeah, Tyler's doing good. He can talk, he smiles, he's very positive, has a lot of energy, but it's a different story with my family. And this is where I think burnout is so severe because it affects the people we love the most without us even realizing it. For other people, I could put on a mask, but for my family, especially my young kids, it was like the smallest thing would set me off and I would yell and scream and be angry. The next is you find it hard to concentrate. I know we all have this issue when it comes to like purchasing courses, like we jump from course to course, but this is where your mind is always racing. You can't concentrate on anything. Next, and what it often leads to is you self-medicate with food, drugs, alcohol, or work. I think work is one thing that we don't realize is self-medicating, but we have this trauma we haven't dealt with. We have these hurts in our heart that we haven't dealt with. We don't talk about our emotions. We don't want to deal with them. So we just cover it up. We get the next cert, we get the next CVE, we solve the next machine, and we boast about it online. We find our worth in that. And sometimes it's a mix of all those things. The next is your sleep habits have changed or you cannot sleep. Now, some of us, to be fair, have self-inflicted insomnia. What I mean by that is if you're like staring at your screen or staring at your phone, and then like 1 minute later you try to go to bed, you can't say you have insomnia. It's just like play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Don't stare at your screen right before you go to bed. So I'm not talking about self-inflicted insomnia. I'm talking about the insomnia where you're exhausted, you have no energy, you don't even want to be awake. You lay down to go to bed. Next thing you know, it's midnight. Then it's 1 a.m. Then it's 2 a.m. Then it's 3 a.m. Then it's 4 a.m. And then you're panicking because you're like, man, I'm going to be even more tired tomorrow because I'm not sleeping, but you're unable to sleep. The next night, the cycle repeats itself. You're exhausted, you're fatigued, but you cannot sleep. It's 3 in the morning. Your mind is racing. The other thing the Mayo Clinic talks about is unexplained headaches and stomach problems. Actually, the Mayo Clinic keeps going on beyond that with health issues that you might notice. So, friends, I want you to honestly look at this list and ask yourself, are these evident in your life? Now, if I'm honest, if I'm vulnerable with you about my own life, I can look at seasons of my life where one or more of these are evident. I can look at other seasons of my life, such as what I was talking about when I was transitioning from pastoral ministry to IT, where every single one of these was in my life. Now, here's the problem when it comes to burnout. We don't talk about it. When we do talk about it, I think we address it incorrectly. we in our culture, and once again, I'm speaking of American culture, but I'm sure it applies to others, is we have this like, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and keep moving forward. We have the whole try harder mentality that John Strand just went on an incredible rant about. Try harder, try harder, try harder. That might be, I say might be good advice on a hack the box machine. It is not good advice when it comes to your mental and emotional, spiritual, and physical health. Trying harder is going to end up in disaster and destruction. It also doesn't help that we often hear about CEOs who sleep like 3 to 4 hours a night, are more productive than all of us, and we think, hey, if they can do it, I can do it too. Or we hear about people like Elon Musk, who advocates hardcore work. You can work 60, 70, 80 hours a week, sleep in your office if you have to, because the goal is success, the goal is money, the goal is career. It'll all pay off in the end. Friends, that is absolutely terrible advice. Do not try harder. Do not ignore it. It's same if I am doing a pen test for a company and I tell them, yo, your main login screen is vulnerable to SQL injection. And they tell me, hey, I don't want to talk about it. Like, that's going too deep. Okay, fine. But like, the real hackers are going to discover that and you're going to regret your choices. It's the same here. You can ignore this, but it will end in destruction. So let's talk about that. If we choose to simply not do anything, what will happen? Well, according to the Mayo Clinic, here are some of the consequences. One is insomnia. Already talked about that. Don't need to go into detail about that. The next is sadness, anger, and irritability. This is more than just like dealing with traffic. I told you guys, I live in South Dakota. There's like no people here. But when I go to a major city like DEF CON in Las Vegas, places like that, traffic can drive me crazy because I'm not used to it. But I'm not talking about that type of sadness, anger, and irritability. It's sadness and anger and irritability that once again goes deep into your soul, and you often lash out at those you love the most. You lash out at those closest to you. Next is alcohol and substance abuse. This is something, once again, I think IT professionals joke about. You see this on Discord, on Reddit. It's often joked about, but it is a very serious problem, and especially the way it once again affects children, partners, close friends, and your own health. When you live for the weekend, only so every single weekend and every single evening, you are getting wasted so that you can numb the inner pain that you have not dealt with. You are self-medicating. It is not going to help you in the long run. According to the Mayo Clinic, it also leads to heart disease, leads to high blood pressure. It can lead to type 2 diabetes. And actually, the Mayo Clinic kept going on with all of the physical effects that not dealing with burnout and stress and really depression can lead to. But I want to point this one out. Consider all the effects it has on your children and your partner and your friends. The really terrible thing about burnout, I want to emphasize this again, is the damage it does to those we love without us realizing it's damaging them. So what's the way forward? You might be thinking, okay, John was good. Now this Tyler dude just spent like 20 minutes making me depressed about what the future looks like. So let me share on a positive note. I want to share with you 3 ways forward. So when I do a pen test, at a pen test, I will often write, here are ways that you can remediate these vulnerabilities. So here are my 3 suggested remediations. Number 1, begin going to professional therapy today. All right. If you've ignored everything I've said, and I'm still on your side screen, look at your side screen right now. Begin going to professional therapy today. Not the person next to you, you. Therapy is for everyone. We need to remove the stigma that we only go to therapy when our lives are completely falling apart. You take your car to a mechanic every 3,000 miles to get an oil change. You should be going to professional therapy so that you are in a healthy place emotionally and mentally. The greatest thing you can do for your career is not to earn the OSCP. The greatest thing you can do for your career is to get healthy. The next one, which you'll discover this in therapy, is we need to redefine success. Right now, if I ask you, what does it mean for you to be successful? Many of us would say success for me is landing a role as a pen tester. Success for me is getting a bug bounty. Success for me is getting my first CVE. Success for me is making this much money. Whatever it is, friends, life is much more important about who you're becoming and less important about what you are doing. If you have young kids like I do, so from that perspective, we often justify this to ourselves by saying, well, I need to provide for my kids. I want to give them a life I've never had. Hear me clearly. Your kids don't need you to make more money. They need you to be healthy and they need you to be present. They need you to go outside and do chalk. They need you to go outside and play tag with them. Your partner does not need you to make more money. They need you to be present and healthy. Your friends need you to be present and healthy. That is the goal. That is how we need to redefine success. And finally, join a community. I know I'm not unique in this because I'm speaking to a bunch of people in IT, but one of my passions is gaming. And one of the genres I really enjoy are MMOs. Right now, I play Elder Scrolls Online, but I've played WoW, I played RuneScape. I remember EverQuest, also known as EverCrack, because of how addicting it was. I remember old school games like Tibia and those old MMOs. What I love about MMOs is when you come into a boss fight and you cannot defeat them, and you get frustrated. It's like you die once, you die twice, you die 3 times. You finally go out and get some friends. And then you and like 4 or 5 other friends go to the boss, and the boss does not stand a chance. Friends, using MMO language, I would argue emotional and mental health is a boss fight that you cannot win on your own. You will be defeated. You need a community of people around you. In MMO language, every tank needs a healer. Super nerdy, but it is true. These communities can look like a variety of things. I started a community called, or I co-founded one called the Work Smarter community. SimplyCyber is a sweet community. BHIS has a community. Rhino Security Labs has a community. I think it's less important what community you enjoy and more important that you join and that you are active. I'm just about at the end of my talk, and this is my very final slide. Hey, if I said something that offended you, like, let me know. If I suddenly disagree with, let me know. Or hey, if I can encourage you in any way, connect with me. This is my YouTube link. If you go to my YouTube and look at any of my videos, you can find my Discord, you can find my Twitch, you can find all my contact information. But YouTube is my main platform. And look, I don't charge money for anything that I do. Our Work Smarter community, everything's completely free. Everything I do is free. So if I can encourage you in some way, people often ask me like, hey, Tyler, can I pay you for to jump into a call for some of your time? And I'm like, I'll jump in a call with you, but you're not paying me. I truly believe in giving back free of charge to the community at large. So if I can support you in any way, if I can answer questions, if I can be that person with you on this journey to defeat this boss fight of mental health, reach out to me. Would love to connect with you, would love to chat with you, and would love to hear from you. But hey, this is everything I have. I want to once again thank Jerry, thank the Simply Cyber community, thank my friend Jay Gold for giving me the opportunity to be here. And I think I'm right at the end of my time. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tyler, can you want to switch your feed? Thank you so much, Tyler, for being here, guys. Just so you know, Tyler, I have never heard a more impactful and real talk on mental health and cybersecurity than what you just did. Like, it's a topic we talk about. Thank God it's a topic we talk about. But I've heard it diced and sliced all different ways. I've never heard one so direct and so like resonating and take action now than that talk. So people in chat definitely loved it. Network Chuck was in here. He said he wants to talk to you, I think maybe for a mental health video. Yeah. So anyways, super awesome. Tyler, if you have any time, would love it if you could go over to the Discord server. There's a track 1 open chat. If you had a couple minutes just to answer some questions that people have.
I'll be there.
Okay. Thank you. If you're interested in having a little follow-up Q&A with Tyler, please go over to the track 1 open chat in the Discord server, and we'll get you sorted out. Any final thoughts? I dropped a link really quick. Just this is the Work Smarter community that Tyler was referencing. I dropped a link in LinkedIn. On YouTube for everybody to giddy up on. So that is your community, right?
Yeah, yep, that's the one we co-founded, and it's mainly Discord, but we do like weekly goals meetings. We do even like mock interviews, all free of charge. It's a way to give back. So yeah, come connect. Would love to hear from people there.
Awesome. All right, Tyler. Well, thank you very much. We'll slide you off and wish you good well.